acting school has changed the way I look at people. Stay tuned and I'll tell you all about it.
Shavinism.
Hi guys and welcome to Shavinism. My name is Yaron Shavit, where I do discussion topics every Monday and comedy and characters every Thursday. If you are new to the channel, willkommen! I hope you'll stick around. Today I want to talk about how acting school changed the perception in which I view other people and myself as well. For those that don't know, I am an actor. I'm mainly theater trained and I've done mainly theater, but I've also done some film and TV. For those that are curious, there's a link to my IMDb page at the bottom. Now, acting school, aside from prancing around in a leotard and pretending to be a tree, has a lot to obviously do with how to view human nature. A lot of the time in acting school you spend basically analyzing what you are, who you are, learning the tool, which is your body, and how to use it to portray a character. And also you spend a lot of time analyzing other people and what they are and what they bring to the table. When working on a character, you basically analyze how that character is similar to you and also acknowledge how it's different from you in order to portray that character in the best way you can. Now, of course, there's a lot of different ways and methods to portray a character, and every actor has a slightly different approach, and there are different methods that actors use, but for me it was always about physical connection. If I could connect to the character physically, that's how I felt. If I could connect to it physically, I could play the character. Now, in acting school we have a lot of different methods and techniques that we use to connect a body to a character. Just to give you a few examples, there's an exercise that we often use, which is leading body parts. So which body part does the character lead with? So someone who leads with their head, for example, is considered to be very rational, very grounded, and that's very different from someone who leads with their feet. And we use it in terminology as well. So someone who thinks on their feet is sort of very spontaneous, very intuitive. Someone who's led by their gut instinct, their gut reaction. Again, quite intuitive, maybe not as spontaneous as someone who thinks on their feet, but is very different than someone who thinks from their head. Now, these are all metaphors, but they really, when you're trying to portray a character, that can be really helpful to establish a physical connection with that character. And I think as people, we're also the same. Different people move very differently, and the body language and how we look at people and how they convey themselves with their body language has an automatic effect of how we react to them. Another exercise a lot of time actors use is animal work. So trying to distinguish which animal that character would be. Now again, this is a metaphor, but we use it in language as well. When we say someone is like a hawk, it's very direct, it's very pointed, as opposed to someone who's quiet as a mouse, as opposed to someone who's stubborn like a mule or strong as a bull. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only trait that person has. So if someone is quiet as a mouse, yes, they may be quiet, but also mice are great survivors. I personally hate them. I have a phobia for mice, but they have survived. They can find a way to survive, and so their instincts are probably very good. Their sense of smell is very good. They can fear, they can sense danger. Again, this is a metaphor, but it's a technique a lot of actors use to connect to a character. And when you look at people as well, a lot of times you'll see people and you'll think that they resemble a certain animal, not in a bad way or a derogatory way, but it's just a metaphor that they give a certain feeling to you about how they move and how they react to things. You could do the same with musical instruments. So example, someone who's a drum is not necessarily someone who's like a flute. And a drum could be someone who's very loud, but you could also say that it's someone that's quite adaptable, because drums are the rhythm behind the music. They give rhythm to the world, and that's also very important. Naturally, the effect of studying all this, it changes your perception of the world and how you view people. So you start looking at yourself and you start looking at others around you. A tool that I found really useful to portray a character, but also in life on how I view people, is the 4 elements. You're probably familiar with the 4 elements. So earth, fire, wind, and water. Together they make Captain Planet, but also they exist in people. Now, of course, everyone has a bit of everything, but when you portray a character, what you're trying to think of is which 2 elements are dominant, which 2 elements would help me portray this character in the best way that I can. There's not necessarily a right way and a wrong way. It's just a way that I feel is the best way for me to portray this character. So let's go over the element and see what they symbolize. Again, there's no right or wrong, but I'll say what they mean to me, and then you can sort of discuss with me if you agree with me or disagree with me. So the first one is earth. So what is earth? To me, very rational, very grounded, very rooted. Is it a charismatic element? Could be. It's very direct. but it's also very analytical. So it could be just someone who's a bit of a nerd and very analytical. How does they solve problems? They probably do it in an analytical way. They look at the problem, they think what would be the best possible outcome, and then they do that in a very rational way. How does Earth get angry? Well, to me, it's a very stoic energy. So it takes it inside. It just roots itself stronger to the ground, you know, branches out, but it keeps it very, very much inside. And even if it gets mad, it keeps it a very direct energy. To me, an example of an Earth actor would be Tom Hanks.
That's not the point. From the day they hired me to the day I was fired, I served my clients consistently, thoroughly, with absolute excellence. If they hadn't fired me, that's what I'd be doing today.
And they don't want to fire you for having AIDS, so in spite of your brilliance, they make you look incompetent, thus the mysterious lost file. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Correct. I was sabotaged.
I don't buy it, counselor.
That's very disappointing.
I don't see a case.
I have a case. If you don't want it for personal reasons.
Thank you, that's correct. I don't.
Well, thank you for your time.
Water. So water to me is an energy that adapts. You know, it finds the cracks, it finds where to go to, it adapts very well. How do they deal with obstacles? They find a way around it. Somehow they find a way around it. What does water look like when it gets angry? To me, it's water is an energy that it takes and it takes and it takes, and then at some point it goes and crashes on the waves. So it can take quite a bit, but if it gets really, really upset, if it took too much, then it will flood your city. Someone to me who has a watery quality as an actor is Morgan Freeman.
I don't think I could make it on the outside, Andy. I've been in here most of my life. I'm an institutional man now. It's like Brooks was.
Wow, you underestimate yourself.
I don't think so. In here, I'm the guy who can get things for you, sure, but outside, all you need is the yellow pages. Hell, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Pacific Ocean? Shit. About to scare me to death, something that big.
Not me.
I don't think you ought to be doing this to yourself, Andy. This is just shitty pipe dreams. I mean, Mexico is way the hell down there, and you're in here, and that's the way it is.
Wind or air? To me, wind is an energy that's always moving. It always changes. It's like people that can't stay in one place. They can have different ideas every day. They can be very charming to you, but they'll only stay as long as they need, and then they're on to something else. It's a lot of times it's people with great ideas, but they change on a daily basis. So they'll come to you and they go, I have this great idea. We should sell Mercedes. And then they'll convince you that that's the best idea possible. They'll convince you about all the marketing. You'll get so hyped up about their great idea, and then you'll call them 3 days later and they'll be like, nah, forget the idea I said 3 days ago. I have a new idea. We should open a chain of restaurants. How does a person with an airy quality get mad? To me, it's like a hurricane, you know? It blows everything in its way and then it's gone. It's somewhere else. It doesn't stay there. It sort of releases and then it calms down. It could be someone who also kind of jumps from one idea to the other in the middle of a conversation. To me, a great example of that would be Woody Allen. When he gets really confused and he has that thing where he goes, it's you, how could you do that to me? It just gives that feeling of something that changes all the time.
I'm an absolute master. I gotta cut down on my drinking. I'm beginning to put away a quart a day.
Christie. I'm no longer at 431-5997. I'm going to be at Mr. Feet. What time did that come in?
What about fire? So fire to me is very sexy, very passionate, you know, there's a fire. Like you say with people, there's a fire between us, someone who has fire, who's on fire. It's very sexy, it's very passionate, it's very charismatic. But if they get mad, they'll fucking burn your house down. To me, fire is a very consuming energy. A great example of a character that's fire is Al Pacino. I think he's a perfect example of someone who has so much fire in his acting.
Out of order. I show you out of order. You don't know what out of order is, Mr. Trask. I'd show you, but I'm too old. I'm too tired. I'm too fucking blind. If I were the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place. Out of order. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? I've been around, you know. There was a time I could see, and I have seen boys like these, younger than these, their arms torn out, their legs ripped off. But there is nothing like the sight of an amputated spirit. There is no prosthetic for that.
Now all these are of course metaphors, and you need to use your imagination, and there's no right or wrong with this. And there's no good or bad. It's important to stress that there's no good or bad. It's not that fire is better than earth and earth is... Everything has a good and bad side to it. It's another way of empathizing with someone. I think you always try to connect with someone and you try to do it on their level. And if you can understand what they are, then it makes it easier. Of course it's subjective. Of course it's by my perception. There's no other way that I can go around it. But as long as it's not too judgmental, and as long as you're really trying to make a connection with someone and figure out where they're coming from, I think it's a positive thing. Now just to finish off, I'll say what I see myself as. I think I'm a combination of earth and water. I think I consume a lot of energy inside me, but when I get mad, it's one of the scariest things you'll see. I've actually had someone tell me that. I didn't say a thing. I just changed the look in my eyes. I just went like this. Or something. I don't exactly know how I did it. Maybe I'm acting myself really bad, but she told me that that's one of the scariest things she saw. And I think a lot of times I try to adapt. For the better or worse. It's not necessarily a great thing, but I do a lot of times try to adapt to my surroundings. Even sometimes when it's not the best thing to adapt to. So here's my question to you. What elements do you think are your dominant elements? Also, if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, I hope this incentivizes you to check out other videos and eventually subscribe to the channel. And this is where I get airy and I don't remember what I wanted to say. Yeah, I'll see you all next time. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. Bye guys!